we need to talk about fire. In medieval times, fires were frequent. For example, in Werderburg alone, 3 major fires occurred over the course of only 120 years. As buildings were mostly made out of wood, many medieval cities were built out of good fuel for the fire, resulting in rapidly spreading fires, such as the Great Fire of London in 1666, as the buildings hadn't much changed till medieval times. This, however, resulted in most of the city being destroyed within just one fire. Therefore, city shapes could vary very much within only a few decades, though fires weren't a medieval phenomenon, as major fires would continue to occur all the way to the 20th century. Though, with the introduction of professional fire departments, the number of devastating fires would shrink massively across the late 19th to 20th century. In that time period, the Gothic architecture began to set pace also. As the successor to the Romanesque architecture prominent in the centuries before, Gothic architecture was pretty different in comparison to the Romanesque architecture. While Romanesque architecture was mostly plain, had smaller windows, and used half-circular arches, the Gothic architecture was very decorative, had huge windows, and used pointed arches. To project the Gothic architecture to our city, I didn't want to rebuild the church entirely just yet, and as the church was built out of stone, it was massively damaged during the Great Fire. Therefore, to adapt the new architectural style, the church was extended with a Gothic extension. With the destruction of fires a city had to suffer, there were different ways to respond. Some didn't respond at all and just rebuilt the buildings that were before, made out of wood and a good fuel for future fires. Others, however, for example London after the Great Fire of 1666, banned all wooden facades. In Werderburg, however, this simply wasn't possible, for now at least, as the stone supply simply wasn't enough to supply the city's growth. Therefore, building with stone was only then encouraged by a small amount of stone being paid by the nobles of Werderburg to lower the cost of building a stone house. As the second church had many trees surrounding the church, the fire was simply too strong, so the church ended up burning down as well. The people of Werderburg, however, needed the graveyard to bury the victims of the fire, though the number of dead led to the former graveyard to transform into a mass grave. This wasn't an uncommon practice at all, though. For example, in Magdeburg, the Great Fire occurring during the 30 Years' War in 1631 led to the death of up to 20,000 people. Modern construction works in the old town repeatedly encounter such graves or pits surrounding the St. John's Church in Magdeburg. To hide the mass grave in the city, a new church was built on top, marking the city's first catacombs. The church was then dedicated to the Great Fire, symbolized by the church name Saint Laurentius, because he is considered a patron saint against fires, as well as the statue on the marketplace directly in front of the church. In the end, fires will stay a disrupting force in the growth of the city. However, the rebuilding after the first major fire was a major success. Fires simply aren't only bad, they are paving the way for future big plans. Destruction is sometimes just inevitable to pave the way for something even grander. If you enjoyed this video so far, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, it really helps out so much.